Welcome, everybody.
Hi, Mark.
How you doing, Mark?
I'm good. Great to see you both, and welcome to our Leaders Who Care series. And I think we've got two great ones here today. So, how about if we just do some brief intros, and then we can chat. So, old school, ladies first.
My name is Mary Hayes, and I'm the CEO and founder of Workbay. Workbay is a integrated infrastructure system that makes a network to support economic development in communities. I'm here in Little Rock, Arkansas at our offices at the Arkansas Innovation Hub.
Super awesome. John, welcome to you as well. Tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Mark. CEO and founder of One Workforce Solutions, workforce development consulting group that was built on experience I had running the Kentucky State Workforce Agency, as well as the National Workforce Agency at the U.S. Department of Labor, currently housed in Lexington, Kentucky. So good to be here.
Are you from Kentucky?
Yes.
Cool. I mentioned I was in Paducah twice and a few times in Louisville, right? I think you pronounce it.
Many different ways to pronounce it. Yes.
I know. Well, I'm super excited to talk to you both from a selfish reason as well as from our business reason, because my whole background is leadership development, search, acquiring the best talent, et cetera, for our clients who are going to be excited about what we're talking about as well. So how about if we start, Mary, if you can just share some of the exciting developments that have been happening since our last Leaders Who Care conversation, and we'll go from there.
Well, this January, Governor Hutchinson announced his Ready for Life initiative, and we are very proud to be the platform that supports that connectivity. Ready for Life is bringing together the Department of Human Services, Department of Commerce, led by the Arkansas Department of Education, bringing educators, employers, job seekers, and students all together to create a greater engine for economic development, particularly in terms of recovery from COVID disruptions.
And John, I loved, I read a piece that you wrote, and I loved, if I can read it, I was joking with you saying I love it because you start with the word imagine, which is my favorite John Lennon song, but that's another story. But I really like what you said, because it's so true. Imagine a coordinated, collaborative, efficient public workforce system that consistently changes lives for the better. Are you a dreamer?
A little bit of an idealist, yes. I tend to think that more money isn't necessarily what government needs to serve customers better. We just need to be more efficient and more effective. And we need folks like the governor in Arkansas who are willing to step up and say, hey, we're going to chart a bold path forward. And we're not going to wait for more money from Washington or more money from the taxpayers. We have the resources we need. We just need to be better with that. We need to provide better services to our customers. And we need to do it in a coordinated way. It's a cliche to say that government is siloed, but speaking both from my experience at the state level and the federal level, it is siloed. And you need leaders who are willing to step up and say, we as a government have to do better, and we have to break down those walls, and we have to bring the resources together. And that's what Mary and her team are building, and it's exciting to be a part of that.
Yeah, it almost, I had someone tell me a while back two things. A Deloitte partner told me brilliance is simple, which I'm finally getting, and if common sense was common practice, how great would that be? Type of deal. And so, John, can you just tell us a little bit more about what do you think the Ready for Life platform has the potential to do?
I think to your point about simplicity, I think it has the ability to identify what skills are needed by employers. It has the ability to identify what skills the employee or the customers have, and it has the ability to provide those skills to them through any various means of training. And again, to your point, simplicity. What does the employer need? What does the employee have or customer have? And what do we need to provide for them to be able to deliver for that employer? Very simple, but again, hugely difficult when you're talking about the myriad of workforce programs within a given state. Mary talked about adult education, health and family services, and the traditional workforce program. And the ability to work horizontally across all those programs is what Arkansas is attempting to do. And I'm just glad to help them, because this was an effort we tried in Kentucky, and it's a challenge. Again, it sounds easy, but when you're talking about cultures and when you're talking about the way things have always been run in government agencies, it's not always easy to bring those players together and say, hey, let's break down some of those walls and let's share the customer. Let's realize that the customer doesn't particularly care what government service they're getting. They just want the service that's going to get them to the end result, which is a family sustaining wage. And that's where all of our efforts need to be.
So, Mary, talk about that a little bit more if you can, because it seems simple to me that in talking to a lot of corporate leaders all the time of all levels of positions, they generally have a good sense of what they need, and they generally can't find enough of them. And so,
an interesting stat, Mark, from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation that says that 98% of educators believe that they are graduating the students with skills that business needs, and only 11% of business leaders agree. And so we have a situation that's been somewhat like, if we think of the educators as the chefs in the kitchen, they've been serving out for a big buffet restaurant and saying, come on, employers, all you can eat. And yet the food is not meeting the need. And we need to switch to an employer demand driven listening position and go out and ask the employers what they need, take their orders and bring it back to inform the educators, because I've been a teacher. There is not a teacher who doesn't want their student to be successful, but they need the information. And in this information age, with all the tools we have to connect people together, we're just putting some of those common sense tools that we're used to using in our private lives into the public space, where communities can create an infrastructure networked to listen to each other, so that employers can describe the skills they're looking for. Educators can instantly see that morning, what are the job posts in my neighborhood? What are those key skills that are being looked for? There are so many providers now of online learning. There are LinkedIn Learning and all kinds of others. And those libraries need to be curated and made available to people, accessible without price barriers, so that they can get to those skills, get to those credentials, and that the workforce agencies, the human services agencies can all iteratively get into these feedback loops of understanding what do we need, where do we need it, and moving more responsively through immediate information.
Yeah, no, it is brilliant, and yet so simple. And again, because I do speak to a lot of corporate leaders, and they wish, when they're interviewing, we then generally talk to them about experiences and accreditations that they have to get a job done, rather than just years of experience. 0 versus 100 doesn't mean anything. So, John, talk a little bit about how great this could apply to both young people, but also even senior people. Senior people, I mean senior even in age.
Yeah, absolutely. Although there are very few positives to come out of the pandemic, I think one of the positives that's going to come out of this is it's going to force workforce, and it's going to force states to reevaluate exactly what they think their businesses need, what their business customers need. Prior to the pandemic, states got into a little bit of an inertia where they kept providing, to Mary's point, they kept providing the same meals over and over. They kept cooking the same things, saying, hey, we know what business needs here. Now there's a realization that we're all going to have to reevaluate what business needs based upon the pandemic, what changed, what grew, what shrank. And that's going to apply to young folks and older individuals, where the states are going to have to be a little bit smarter about what those employers need, so that, to Mary's point, we can deliver the specific skills youth are going to need, mid-career, more senior workers, whomever, because of the impact and the shock that the pandemic has had on the workforce. We cannot simply do what we've always done. And there is a realization of that, which, as I mentioned, is one of the few positives coming out of this. We're going to have to look more closely at what does that employer customer really need, and do we know? Have we asked the right questions? Are we listening to them? And then through a tool like Ready for Life, we'll be able to then provide those services, so that we can provide the right types of of meals to carry that analogy out further.
Yeah, well, it's a great analogy. Mary, share with how Ready for Life and Workbay are really intersected, if you will, and how it's more than just job matching, right?
Oh gosh, yes. So, well, in terms of the jobs, the facts are that only John, you can confirm for me, but about 1 in 4 jobs ever actually gets posted digitally in your role from Department of Labor. And so many jobs, 3/4 of the jobs are happening through word of mouth, or employers know they need somebody, but they're not going to spend the money to put an ad out on a traditional job board. And they'll know it when they see it. And so we have to really crack open for employers a better way to post those jobs, especially for the before 25 jobs, before $25 an hour, or the kind of jobs that you get before you're 25 years old. Those often tend to be about your social capital, your network of neighbors, rather than your actual skills capital. And that's a problem, because that means we're dealing with a much more subjective economy than we really want to have in a true democratic principle. And so by creating a skills network where you can get the skills you need for the jobs in your community, we are creating a more objective way. And employers can see that pre-hire training has happened and objectively recruit, but also people have every chance to get access to the skills they need to get the jobs that they want. And Workbay is a platform that's an engine for making that happen. And while it's a lot of common sense to it, it's something that we've been working on for 20 years, really. And in the last 5 years have been deploying it. And we have deployed regionally in 9 different states now, and federally as well with the Bureau of Prisons. And so in Arkansas, we have this amazing champion in Governor Hutchinson to fully realize the opportunity to create a networked system for economic development.
You know, I like both your comments on this. I remember when I was younger, go to get a summer job. I don't even know if kids get summer jobs anymore, but I went to get a summer job. And then you get some kids who work at, let's say, McDonald's or this or that. You're just trying to get some cash and you just get a summer job. But what I do remember is that knowingly or unknowingly, it creates a foundation for what's going to happen. Because you do learn, even if you, as a teenager, you might not be even interested in the learning, you just want the money, but you do learn. It sets a foundation for your ability to communicate, to ability to work with other people, so many things. In a way, this is instead of the summer job, if I can make that analogy, for a future. Can you both kind of comment on that? John,
go ahead first, Mary.
Well, we have over 2,000. We have over 2,000 videos on the platform. 1,000 of them are career portraits, people talking about who they are, what they do, what they love about what they do. And wrapped around that video, you can see how much does this job make? Where do I go to school? And schools listed in proximity to me. Here's some online learning that will get you credentialed for that job. And you can, once credentialed, you can show the employers that you choose that you have those skills. And employers can search and find you. And that third wheel here, the third leg on this table, is the government services, the social services, human services, the workforce services, who can also be involved to support, guide, mentor, advise, communicate between the two parties of the learner, earner, and the employer. John.
Yeah, absolutely. And another advantage of doing this at the state level is, you know, we talk a lot in workforce about lifelong learning. And a platform like this will allow me as a youth to come in and maybe find my first job. And then it will allow me to re-engage with the platform and then find the skills I need for my second job and my third job and my fourth job as I progress, as I build those skills, as I actually progress through that lifelong learning. So hugely important, again, to be focusing all of this energy in one place so that I know as the customer, as the employee, that's the portal that I go through. And that's going to help me advance in my career, whatever level my career is at, whether this is my first job or whether I've been working for 25 years in an industry that as a result of the pandemic no longer exists. Now I've got to pivot. I've got to reskill. Well, I'm going to work through that portal because it has the information that I need to know what I need to get my next job. And that's hugely important.
Or my next contract. We have about 250,000 entrepreneurs in Arkansas. About 90,000 of those have employees. And if you are a small business, I mean, we're in the state that has 7 Fortune 500 head offices, and, Walmart being one of them. And a Walmart, where I have done a lot of work, they have an incredible network of tools to manage their human resources for speed to safety, speed to performance, speed to engagement, for recruitment, onboarding, retention, promotion, succession planning, and their talent pipeline. A community needs those same tools. And that's what we're doing. We're giving those tools to the community. And as a small business, you can use Ready for Life to train your employees and to train yourself. And having access to that continuous lifelong learning has not been as equitable before as it will be after Ready for Life. With Ready for Life, there's equal access. And if you are incarcerated, if you are a single mom, as I once was, who has to do her learning at 10 o'clock at night after everything else got done, you have equal access to someone who's free and easy and able to study whenever they wish. So lifelong learning is enabled when we can give equitable access anytime, anywhere to everybody in the state. It's a big dream.
Go ahead, John.
If I could, just real quick, sorry. A key part of workforce development is not just kind of the job matching and finding the new employees. It's to Mary's point, it's understanding who currently works for me and what are the skills that they have and what does their career ladder, their career progression look like. And then that allows me to identify, okay, well, here's what we're missing. And we need to go find more of this, but I can train John to do this and I can train Mary to do that. And we can build the team that way. So workforce development isn't just getting folks into the workforce, which is obviously hugely important, but it's also understanding the talent that you have, and it's understanding the skills gap that currently exists in your business, whether it's 5 employees or 500 employees. You may or may not have a real good understanding of what all those employers are bringing to the table. And this tool will help employers better understand their own existing workforce.
Yes, the key things that we heard on our listening with employers. Manufacturers said, we're not doing additive manufacturing right now, but if someone has 3D printing or additive manufacturing in their resume, we want that person because we know we need to plan for the future. Others told us we need everybody in our company, including the receptionist, to be cyber smart. That's a skill that you don't see in the job posting, but employers know, and we need to get the word out to our educators.
You guys are raising, in LA, we always say keep people wanting more so we can do a sequel. We might have to do a sequel to this, actually. But a couple of things you guys raised were, one of my favorite words is belonging. And they say that after food and air, the thing that fills people's hearts and souls most is belonging to something. And it's kind of what you're talking about in the sense of if someone can feel like the feeling of having a start to a potential career, no matter where it may pivot, and belonging to someone, and I do a lot of sports analogies too, like a coach who cares about me, who is a leader who cares, if you will, is a tremendous feeling in so many ways for a person. Because if you're in survival mode, there's no creativity happening. You're just surviving. And I think to John's point about the pandemic, and it's happened over decades where, they say, oh, these are going to eliminate jobs. The Industrial Revolution is going to eliminate jobs. Now robots there's always new jobs that are needed and created. And I think that's one of the super positives I see about this. And I do love the analogy again in sports where if a player feels the coach fights for them and cares about them, that player would do anything for that coach. And the same thing applies to employees in a company. If they see that they're really cared for, their performance will be spectacular. In a way, it kind of reminds me.
Can I put another sports metaphor in there?
My pleasure.
Well, in hockey, we talk about how you got to skate to where the puck is going to be. Yep. And I know this means a lot to John because in Department of Labor and Commerce, we often have to deal with data that's 2 years old. And this is about immediacy of data to really allow predictive analytics. It's been hard post-COVID, because a lot of the hockey thing, it's been hard post-COVID because a lot of the data, wouldn't it be, John, is pre-COVID data that we're trying to use to navigate a post-COVID world.
Absolutely, and the ability for states to understand that. And again, I think that the pandemic is gonna force states to update that data, update those conversations with the employers, find out, to your point, where the puck is going to be in 6 months, and start building up and training towards that. So even though the country is not fully reopened, we need to start thinking about this now, because this is not the type of thing that we can do in a week or 2 weeks. This is going to take months to change an economy of a local area or of a city or of a state. But if we're thinking about it now and we're doing it in a concerted, coordinated way, the resources are there to really be impactful.
You know what I love about this, and I'd love to kind of tie the bow until the sequel, I think that's going to be coming up. But the impact, and that's something we look at about at Fifth Element all the time. There should be an economic and social impact at the same time. Companies should be allowed to make money. People should be allowed to make money. But though people want to make a difference also where they work, they want to have purpose. Talk a little bit about, we touched on a little bit before, the dignity and self-esteem that this provides people on both sides, but especially people that never would have thought they'd have this opportunity. I saw a movie last night, Fisherman's Diary. It's without going into the whole thing, it's about a young girl who is not allowed to go to school after like Malala. But the hidden talent, if you will, that she had was being wasted. And there's so many people that are going to be able to apply and go into your program that will come up with cures for who knows what, or whatever they're going to. So talk a little bit about the dignity and self-esteem that this will bring and how that impacts community, because it does impact your health if you're not having to survive every day. It does impact the crime, that happens, and so on and so forth, and inclusion and belonging. So if you could both chat about that a little bit, that'd be great. John, we'll go with you first.
Well, it's interesting, Mark. You were talking earlier about how if individuals have written books, oftentimes the book is prominently displayed over their shoulder. The first op-ed that I wrote in my role in the Department of Labor, I've got a copy of it. It's entitled "Lifting Up Americans Through the Dignity of Work." And believe it or not, that ran in the Paducah Sun. But dignity of work is so hugely important. The ties, the positives that come out of an individual who feels as though that they belong to something, that they're working, to your point, something that they care about, an objective, whatever that objective is, whatever that common goal that group is working towards, is so hugely important. And we've seen that, in some of the rural areas here in Kentucky, that when individuals fall out of the workforce, when they lose that job attachment, that unfortunately things tend to spiral from there. So the ability to open up our opportunities to folks who think that they otherwise don't have those opportunities, or that, I'm not smart enough to do that, I'm not good enough to do that, I can't get the training for that, I can't afford this. There are so many different pathways to get into the workforce, and this platform again is going to identify those various avenues and allow the individual to make the choice so that they can have the economic stability that they need, so that they can have the dignity of work and they can have all of the benefits that come along with that. It's just that can impact a community so incredibly.
Mary.
Yes, the very first deployments of Workbay were in remote communities, First Nation or Native communities, where resource industry knew that there was more than 90% unemployment. But when those kids that were currently in grade 8 graduated was when they wanted to employ them. And so there you had a very tight community with a very deep belief that everyone in the community should be able to give their gifts to the community, that was part of the meaning of life, was to bring your gifts to the community and share in the bounty of the community. And I have just seen so many times, I go into a classroom or a workforce room and we start by asking people what they want to be, and they write down, and it's tragic how few answers we get. You could teacher, doctor, lawyer, nurse, policeman. Pretty much covers it. Occasional basketball star, or musician from a rebel. And then we put them on a platform, one of our platforms, and at the end, in 7-10 minutes, you've got a room where one person's looking at an obstetrician, others looking at a refrigeration technician, another one's looking at robotics, another one's looking at some job I didn't even hardly know existed, and people are finding it. People are going, what? The truck driver makes what? It takes how long to get that license? There's how many jobs around here? And people will start sorting jobs too in different ways. Like the career cards are that they have videos and all that on them. So they'll start doing like little searches, and they'll go, well, what pays the most and what has the most jobs? And it just engages people in thinking differently and letting them cross the threshold into offices that you wouldn't normally see. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Batesville, Arkansas, completely, I hope they'll pardon me, nondescript building. You would have driven by it and not even thought twice. And inside there, they are making optical lenses that are used in satellites, that are used to protect our military, that are used in all kinds of purposes, that are helping to discover new technology to save children's eyesights. And they call themselves photon cowboys. And they make thousands and thousands of optical lenses in that place. And the people from the Chamber of Commerce were with us, and they were saying, almost no one in town knows, if you don't work here, you don't even know that this job is here in your own neighborhood, to make this kind of an impact on the world, to be putting the things into the sky, and using light waves to cut steel. And so we want to get that story out there.
You give me a good segue to complete. Thank you for that. Space is becoming a big business again right now. Huge. We're doing a lot of work in space exploration and stuff. So there's different jobs coming up. But one of the things that I've always been interested in is when a person comes home from work, number one, if they're not happy or whatnot, they'll sit, have dinner, go on the couch, have a beer, whatever, but then they'll complain about their boss and whatnot. Now what happens with this is the person comes home from what they're doing and talks about how great it is what they're doing at work with the kids at the dinner table. Talks about, yeah, I made a bonus because of this and this, and we're making money, and my company really cares about this and this and this also. So all of a sudden, if you want to talk about sustaining this system, the kids are interested in what they're hearing their mom or dad is doing, working at a company or whatever they're doing. And that becomes an awareness of hanging out at the mall instead of hanging out at the mall, or God forbid, getting caught up in communities where it's selling drugs or whatever it may be. It starts to create a sustainable circular economy, if you will, of the parent coming home and talking real positively of what's going on. So, man, I congratulate you guys. It's exciting to be involved in this. Any final comments?
I would just finish it up by saying you're exactly right, Mark. A platform like this creates opportunity. It allows individuals to have the opportunity, to your point, to belong to something bigger than them. It allows them to be opened up and exposed to things that they didn't otherwise maybe know exist, maybe thought that they were able to take advantage of it, and giving that to everybody and opening that up to all of the residents of Arkansas. And that's a pretty impressive challenge in front of Mary and her team. And again, I'm happy to do what I can to pitch in and help them move the state in that direction, because that's, the look on someone's face when you've exposed them to something that they didn't otherwise think that they could take advantage of is extremely rewarding.
And I, on behalf of everybody, we want to thank Governor Hutchinson, from the bottom of our hearts, because to harness all these horses together and drive in one direction, no matter how common sense that direction is, it takes leadership, championship, confidence, and a sense of inspiration and innovation. And we found it here. We found it here in Arkansas. We're very excited about the future.
Hey, there's a lot of leaders who care out there. We just got to give them that opportunity that you're both talking about. Thanks so much for sharing. Look for the sequel somewhere, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks very much.